Hi, it's Jenny Nash, the founder and CEO of Author Accelerator, and I want to address a situation that comes up often in a book coaching business, and that is when you get your ideal client on a call and they press you for some kind of metric or proof of success that you don't have. This just happened with one of our book coaches, and she asked for my advice in this situation. And it happens so often that I thought I'd record a video to give advice to lots of people. So this situation is really gut wrenching when you're in it because it tends to make you just freeze up and go, oh, I don't have that. And that might be a New York Times bestseller, a client who's had a six-figure advance or $1 million advance, or they've gotten a top big five book deal or a big agent or whatever the metric is, hit the New York Times list, hit the Wall Street Journal list. Somebody's going to come at you someday with that question about that measure that you may or may not have. And no matter how many accolades your clients get, they're going to come at you with some kind of question like that you can't answer. And there were many times as I was building my career when I got those questions that I couldn't answer either. Now I do have a lot of those things, but people still come at me with those kinds of questions, and I still hate them, and I still have to really think about how best to answer them. So I have so many things that I want to say in response to this particular situation and this particular question that comes up. So the first thing I want to say is that I can't say this enough. I do not believe that the correlation between whatever metric that might be out there and being a book coach is there. It's just not. You could be a really good book coach. You could be really serving your writers and really helping them meet their goals and achieve their dreams and do all the things that they want to do, and not yet or ever have the kind of metrics that some people are going to ask for. And the reason for that is there's so many different kinds of ways to measure what is a successful writing, what is a successful outcome in working with a book coach. There's just 100, 1,000, as many ways to measure that as there are writers and book coaches. And one of the things that I think is wrong with our industry is that we tend to have this idea that there's only certain books or certain accolades or certain metrics that matter. It's like, oh, have you hit the New York Times bestseller list? Did you get multiple six figures for your book? Well, those are the only things that matter. Well, we know that that's just ridiculous. You and I have all often read books that we have loved and cherished and considered to be important in our lives and been amazing that didn't hit all those accolades. The books that do that hit those really big things are like the 0.1% of the 1% of all books published. So there's a whole lot of other ways to be successful as a writer and a whole lot of other ways for a book coach to help a writer. And having those few measures of success and those few metrics that are just this tiny little tippy top bit of one particular kind of success is just kind of insane. So that's the global thing I want to say is to remember that when you are coaching people, there are many different kinds of success, and there are many different ways to help writers. And if you are defining what you do and doing that work with integrity and helping your writers to achieve those types of goals, you're doing good work. And there are plenty of businesses that promise writers things like, oh, we will guarantee that you will be a bestseller. And what they mean is that you're going to get that little orange flag on Amazon, which is actually not that hard to get. And there are ways to engineer it to get it if that's something that matters to you. And then there's all these people going around saying that they wrote a best-selling book, which technically they did because they got that little orange flag. But what nobody ever says is you could get that little orange flag and sell like 100 copies of your book or 150 copies of your book, or, depending on how you slice and dice the category, it doesn't correlate to sales, and it doesn't correlate to impact, to how that book is working in the world or the ripples of impact that it's having, or anything. So these ways of measuring success are really so arbitrary. And We need to set them for ourselves in our book coaching business, and we need to help our writers to set them as well. That's why the first steps in all of my blueprint books are: why are you writing this? And who are you writing it for? What's your point? What do you hope to achieve? We want to get those answers in, because how we coach that writer is going to differ depending on what they answer. And so many writers answer in the same way. They say things like, I want to quit my day job. That's a big one. I hear a lot. Or success for me would be selling my book to Reese Witherspoon and getting a big movie deal. It's like, well, yes, that's a great thing to want, but there's a very, very, very few number of people that get that, and it's completely not in your control. So, as a book coach, our job is to help our writer understand. Okay, you say you want to quit your day job. What does that mean? Because depending on what it means, there are particular things you might do as a writer to achieve that are different from what you might do if your goal as a writer is to get this book out of your head and onto the page before your 50th birthday because it's a dream you always had. There's so many different kinds of goals for writers, and our job as book coaches is to help them achieve those goals. So thing one is to know how you're serving writers. Thing two is to really ask those writers what they want and what they need, and try not to think about these arbitrary metrics that you can't control. And then there's the question of, okay, what do I do if I get on a call and somebody comes at me with one of those questions? Have you had writers hit the New York Times bestseller list? Have you had writers, get multiple six figures? Have you had writers get big five book deals? If they come at you with those questions, you want to be prepared. You want to write out a script. You want to practice the script. You want to know for yourself how you're going to respond, so that you don't get caught flat-footed and not know what to do and then get tongue-tied, because it's going to happen. It still happens to me all the time, and I do have those things, and I still hate that question, and I become very skeptical of wanting to work with that writer at all if they come at me with those questions, because I think they're the wrong questions. And I'm at the point in my career now where I will turn it around on them really hard, and I will say, why would you ask that? Why is that the metric of your success? Why is that the thing that you care about? Why does that matter to you? And maybe somebody will have good answers to the questions that I put back on them, that make me think, okay, they have thought about this. They know what they need to know to do to achieve that. They understand the risks. They understand the parameters. Maybe I can move ahead and work with them. But odds are really good that if they're asking that question with a certain kind of tone, a sort of demanding or a confrontational tone, that I don't want to have anything to do with that person. Because what happens if you don't hit that goal, or you don't achieve that milestone, or you don't do for them what they think they wanted, that external measure of the thing? Then they're going to think that you failed, or that your work together was not worth anything. I don't like that. I don't like that parameter at all. So that's the way that I respond to those kinds of questions now. But I recognize that I am at a point in my career where a lot of book coaches are not yet at that point, and they can't have that kind of response. And usually those kind of questions are going to make them freeze, and they're going to make them question what they're doing and if they're any good at it, and it's going to bring up all kinds of doubts and all those kinds of things. So that's what I really want to address, is what do you do if you're new in your business, or you're building your business, and someone comes at you, and let's assume that they are not coming at you with a demanding and confrontational tone. Let's just assume that they're coming at you with a tone of curiosity and of doing their due diligence. And they say, I'm talking to several book coaches, and these are the questions that I'm asking. And they ask one such question. How many writers have you had who have done X, or who have achieved Y, or that sort of thing? The way that I would respond is to remember that if you were to be coaching this actual individual, what you want to do in that relationship is build trust, and you want to be honest, and you want to act with integrity. And if you are doing those things, or if those are the things you want to ultimately doing, you should be doing those things now in this conversation. So the way that I would respond and the way that I would plan the script and plan to respond is to say something like, thank you for asking that question. I think these are good questions for you to be asking. And I do want to ask about why you're asking that and why that particular thing is important to you. But I'm going to first answer your question, and I'm going to answer it honestly, which is to say, no, I have not coached a New York Times bestseller, or I have not made, my writers have not made gazillions of dollars, or whatever the thing is. And to say, just to be honest and to say, and I want to tell you why that is so. Why that is so is I'm pretty new to this. I've been doing this for 2 or 3 or 4 or however many years, and it takes books that long to come into being. And that's one thing to do, is just to say there's a reason for it, and that's why it's because it just takes a long time. And then you might say, and the other reality is not a lot of books hit those metrics. A very few number of them actually do, which is why in my business, I focus on X. So then you're telling the truth, you're giving that reality, but you're also putting it in a larger context. And that larger context is publishing in general, that not that many people are going to hit those things, and that metric is out of our control. And then you can talk about what is in your control. And you can say, in my business, I focus on helping you define your book and your goals and what you want to write, because that's what is going to feel successful, is if you hit those things, if you define those things and you hit those things. And I really pride myself on helping you to do that, and then controlling what we can to get there. So I would ask you, if we were to start coaching together, to begin by talking about what are those goals, and why, if you want one of these things you're talking about, a lot of money or big accolades or praise or validation by the publishing industry, why you want those things, and what's going to happen if you don't get them, and how are we going to control the things that you can control. And if indeed you want X thing, you're really going to have to start marketing now. You're really going to have to start building a list. You're probably going to have to work on X, Y, and Z. You can talk about what you know about the industry and how it works and how books are launched and that sort of thing. And not in a defensive, argumentative way, but in a way of like, this is how I work, and this is what is important to me, is listening to you and helping you write the book that you want to write. So you're answering the question by talking about how you run your business and what kinds of things that you can do for people. And then you can break it down even further, and you can say, once we've defined what the parameters of success are, here are some of the ways that I help people to do that. And then you can talk about how you run your business, that how you hold people accountable, the systems and processes that you use to help them along the way, the successes that you have had. And you can tell stories about your successes. Don't tell the story that they're wanting to hear about, the accolade or the money or the whatever. Don't try to scramble to fill in the blank of, well, I've had somebody do this or that. Talk about your successes, and in stories. People love stories. So you could say, right now I'm working with a memoir writer who's just started their book, and we've gone through the 14-step blueprint, and they've arrived at this place where they're so clear on what they want to write, and they're so excited, and we have a plan for them to finish in 4 months, because they want to finish by X date because of a conference or a contest or a birthday or whatever, and I'm going to get them there. So you're talking about your systems, your processes, your pride, your accountability, how people can trust you. You could tell other stories like, last year I helped a client, and she really wanted what you're saying you want. She wanted a big book deal, and she wanted a big agent, and we prepared a plan, and we prepared a strategy, and we got her up to the point where she was ready to pitch. And she pitched and got a bunch of rejections, and realized that she didn't actually want that, what she was going after, that she didn't want to keep going and putting herself out there in that way, that she just really wanted that book in her hands. And so she went in this different direction and decided to bring her book to life in this different way. And her book is coming out in 3 months and it's going to be so exciting because she's doing this event or this tie-in or this thing. Like, you talk about the tangible things that you have helped people do and how you help them through the decisions and how you help them through those crossroads points, and really paint a picture for the kind of coach that you are. I think answering in those ways is, again, it's building a sense of trust. It's talking about integrity. It's being honest. It's being the way that you are going to be when you coach that person. So that's the way that I would respond in the moment. And if that person then says to you, well, I just want you to know that I'm shopping around. I'm talking to a bunch of coaches, different coaches, and I will let you know what I decide. What I would do in response to that, which is what happened in this specific situation that I'm referring to, is I would say, I think that is excellent. The most important thing in a book coach is that you feel comfortable and that you feel the fit is good and that you feel that that person really gets you in that story. So shopping around is so awesome. I support that. I think that's great. And then you could say, is there anything that I could do to help you discern whether or not I am that person for you? Are there any other questions you'd like to ask me? Is there anything else you would like to talk about? Because we have X number of more minutes in our call, something like that, to let them know it's great that they're shopping around. They should shop around. I have had that happen many, many, many times. And I think that the more money people are going to pay to work with you, the more likely it is that either they're going to make a super quick decision and go with you, or they're going to shop around. I mean, now that I'm saying this out loud, I don't know that it has to do with how much money they're paying. I've seen that at all different price points, that people either feel immediately ready to buy or they're going to shop around. And maybe that's just because of the kind of person they are. They are a shopper. They like to kick the tires and compare things. And it makes me think about my husband, who he's a cyclist and he loves bikes and he has a lot of them. And whenever he's going to buy a bike, I mean, he spends a year making spreadsheets and comparing components and prices and talking to people and going to look at bikes and riding bikes and thinking about bikes and studying bikes and researching the thing. And it's like, oh my gosh, just buy a bike already. But he's that kind of person. It's part of the process. It's part of what he likes to do. It's part of how he goes. So when you're a book coach and someone's coming to you and they're that kind of person, you're not going to talk them out of being that kind of person. I think what you want to do is help them. Okay, you're that kind of person. How can I help you figure this out? And then the third thing I would do, so the first thing was, there were four. First thing is, know that it's coming, be ready, be ready for what you're going to say. The second thing is, don't respond to their actual question respond to it, but don't answer that question specifically. You want to say, no, I don't have those things, but let me talk about what I do have. Let me talk about how I do coach. Let me talk about the successes that I have had and how I work with people. So you answer, but you pivot to what you want to talk about. And the third thing was responding if they say they're going to shop around, to embrace that. And all of this is, again, about building honesty, trust, and what was the other one? Having integrity. The last thing that I would do is have a plan to follow up with that person. I think it is really classy and really successful and kind of in the spirit of serving to follow up with that person with something helpful to them. So oftentimes there's something in a conversation will come up where I will think of a book or a podcast or a course or an idea or an article or something that I've seen that's related to what that person is thinking about or working on. And I will deliberately go dig that thing up, that link or what have you, and write a thank you to the person and say, I wanted to thank you for our conversation. Oh, by the way, this is if you want to work with that person. If after the call you're like, I don't like their whole tone and manner and way they came at me, then you're not going to do this. If you want to work with the person, though, Write to them and say, thank you. I thought we had a great conversation. I love your book idea and I would love to help you bring it to life. And just to recap, the package that I would propose is this. And I was thinking about the topic that we were chatting about, and I remembered that podcast or that book or that link or that person or that thing. And I dug it up for you and I wanted to share it here. In paragraph 3 is where they talk about what we were talking about, or here's this thing. It's just a way of saying, this is how I work. I think about your project. I think about you. I listen. I care. And I think that is a beautiful way to follow up to a situation like that. And if that person is shopping around, then they may or may not come back to you. If they don't come back to you, you're going to leave them with a great vibe of like, you were helpful, you were honest, you had integrity, you were of service. And if they don't, I mean, if they do pick you, then you're starting off on the right foot in terms of your relationship. So that was a lot of things to think about in response to what may seem like a small ish thing, but it's a big thing and it never goes away. It never goes away. That's the thing to hold on to. There's going to be something somewhere that comes up for you time and time again that makes you think, I actually don't know what I'm doing. They're right. I haven't helped 15 people do these amazing accolades or whatever the thing is. And we have to get past that and get over that, and remember that what we are doing is helping writers to do their best work and helping them to control what can be controlled. So that is my long answer to that painful situation that person encountered. I know it's hard. I know it's not fun. And I hope that this is going to help you to get past it this time and plan for how to get past it next time.